have so much to cover this morning. So much to cover. So I'm going to jump right in. And the first thing I'm going to mention is the word chiasm, because we have not talked about chiasms at all in 1st and 2nd Samuel. So just show of hands, like just based on what we've seen so far through the Bible, like do you think there are maybe a few, I'm going to say a few, medium, or many? Like you think there are a few chiasms in Samuel? Raise your hands. What if you think there's a moderate amount of chiasms in 1st and 2nd Samuel? Show of hands. I don't know. Hands up. You think there are epic chiasms in 1st and 2nd Samuel? Show of hands.
There'll be all kinds.
Show of hands. There have to be all kinds, right? Just because. Okay, and voila, this is again Hajime's site. And what you're looking at here are 81 points that span across 1st and 2nd Samuel. 1st and 2nd Samuel are one scroll in the Hebrew Bible. We have broken them up into 2 books. It's one scroll. 81 points. That is 40 in the front, 40 in the back, that all line up with each other. One in the middle. Let me let that sink in for a minute, and then let me explain that the first 40 make up their own chiasm, and the second 40 make up their own chiasm. You think it goes deeper than that? 5 levels deep this goes. And this is kind of hard to follow, but what you will see here is that the 1-1 that you see in that second column over there, that will show you the outer level chiasm. 2-1 is like the second level, first one. You scroll down, there's 2-2, which is the second level, third one. 4-5, and I don't know why he skips numbers. He certainly has a reason why he's done this. But 5 levels deep, this thing goes with the chiasms. 81 points across the whole thing. 40 points that line up with the other 40. Now, why am I pointing this out? Because I'm not going to go into these and explain like why it's there. 2 reasons. One, this might be of interest to you. There are some people that are really interested. For example, the person that put this website together, he has dedicated his life at this point to finding these structures in the Bible. Some people will be very interested in it. 2 is to point out that it's there and to understand what that means. Imagine if I asked you to write a series of stories, and I'm like, hey, look, these series of stories need to be good. Like, they need to grab you. In fact, they need to be so good that 2,000 years from now, when people are making movies, the second most grossing movie in the United States last week, anybody know what movie that was? David. Based off of 1 Samuel. And next year, there will be multiple movies made about these stories. And the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that, there will be stories that people will go to see because these stories are amazing. Imagine if I told you, you need to write a series of stories that are so good that people will again and again want to tell them. Now, there are other stories like that. There are a few stories. Lots of them are in the Bible. But there are other people that have written stories. Shakespeare stories. Romeo and Juliet gets retold again and again. But then imagine that I told you, like, not just that. I need you to make, like, these chiastic structures in there that point to stuff. Not just, like, a few of them, but, like, 81, and that go 5 levels deep, that overlap. These aren't all the chiasms in there either, by the way. There are other chiasms within other parts of it. But they need to have these chiasms. And also, like, you need to retell the stories that are there before as well. And what I would tell you is that nobody could do this. Shakespeare couldn't do this. Dickens couldn't do this. Twain couldn't do this. They could tell good stories. They couldn't do this. I'm really fond of A Christmas Carol and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Man, that story is underrated. Incredible story. It's not in the same league as this. It's not even the minor league if this is the major league. It's nowhere near how complex and intricate and amazing this story is. And everything is in the exact place where it goes, which is what these chiasms show us. All right, we got to move on. Enough about chiasms. 1 Samuel ends with the death of Saul, which means 2 Samuel ends with, or starts with, a struggle between the house of Saul and the house of David, because some of Saul's sons have died in that battle at the end of 1 Samuel, but he has at least one son that's left, and he has got a claim to the throne, and David has a claim to the throne, and they are going to struggle through the first couple of chapters until David gets Abner to defect from Saul's house over to his side. Fun fact, that's the middle of the chiasm of all of Samuel. It's 81 points. That's the one in the middle when Abner defects. So finally, along about chapter 5, everything is settled. David becomes king over Israel. What is David going to do when he becomes king? You're David. You've been through this struggle. I mean, the struggle of his life, of him trying to win over Saul, of Saul trying to kill him, of David going over to the people of Gath and living there, and everything that goes on, hiding in a cave. All of his men, all of their wives and children get taken from them, and he has to go. All of these things that happen. He has finally made it, and he is now king over Israel, all of Israel. What is he going to do? It turns out there's this city that's left. It's called Jebus, and it has not been conquered yet. And David is going to go conquer it. Why is it interesting that Jebus hasn't been conquered yet? I mean, because for weeks and weeks and weeks we've been talking about conquest. And that's what Joshua went in to do. And then in the Judges, they're reconquesting the land. And so you think, like, well, there's this talent. Maybe it's far off on the edge, right? Like maybe it's a corner somewhere. It's down in the corner. I mean, it couldn't be like right where they came in at Jericho. Yes, it's right where they came in. So why have they not conquered this little city? The city, by the way, is only like 12 acres. 12 acres, this city is. Well, the reason they have not conquered it, let's get our other slide. Is because, if you scroll down, okay, you're zooming out. So you can see, sort of on the left side of this image, I'm not sure if you're used to looking at relief maps much, but it looks like a peninsula, does it not? Like, it's coming out, we would call it a ridge, and it's got steep edges on either side of it, right? Steep edges on either side. This peninsula is a fortress. Imagine if you're in that time and like you want to assault this city. You're not coming up any of those edges around it, are you? Like, it's like a hill in McDowell County. Like, you're not, you can't go up that hill and attack somebody that's on the top, especially not if they built a wall around this thing. There's only one way in the back, and you see kind of at the top of that ridge, back into the left, it goes up onto another hill. That's the only little part that they have to defend right there. That's really the only way to come in against it. And they built walls around it. But now that's not so much of a problem, because if you've got a city that's sitting up on a hill, what is the one thing that everyone needs? You can't go 3 days without having water, yeah. So it's not really that big of a problem to take a well-fortified city. All you got to do is surround it, and you don't let them get water into the city. Even if they have a stream that flows into the city, well, you just go upstream from that and you spoil it. Throw a dead animal in it or something, whatever you're going to do. Like, just make that water where they can't drink it. But under this ridge is a spring and an aquifer, and they have built shafts that go down into this aquifer so they can get water no matter what you do around them. This is a fortress, and David wants it. He wants it bad. And he goes to the city, and if you read chapter 5, you will see that, like, that's the point. This is a fortress. The Jebusites say, nah, 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 you can't touch us. The lame and the blind could fend you off, David, from where we're sitting. And David says, not if you go through the water shafts. They can't. And so apparently he finds out a way to come up through the water shafts. He takes this city. And then he brings the ark to the city. Well, he tries it first. First time, disastrous. Does not go well at all. They put the ark on a cart to try to bring it in. Not good. You can read all about that in chapter 5. Chapter 6. You can read about the first and the second try, which actually works. It's great. Interesting story about David dancing before the Lord. And that brings us to chapter 7. David now has his fortress. He has built his house in his fortress. He has brought the ark, the presence of God, into this fortress. He has established this as the place he has established his kingdom. He has established where the presence of God is. And he comes in chapter 7, and it says, after the king was settled in his palace, and the Lord had given him rest from all his enemies around him, he said to Nathan the prophet, here I am, living in a palace of cedar, while the ark of God remains in a tent. Nathan replied to the king, whatever you have in mind, go ahead and do it, for the Lord is with you. That night, the word of the Lord came to Nathan, saying, go and tell my servant David, this is what the Lord says. Are you the one to build me a house to dwell in? I have not dwelt in a house from the day I brought the Israelites up out of Egypt to this day. I have been moving from place to place with a tent as my dwelling. Wherever I have moved with all of the Israelites, did I ever say to any of their rulers, whom I commanded to shepherd my people Israel, why have you not built me a house of cedar? Now then, tell my servant David this. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I took you from the pasture and from following the flock to be ruler over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and I have cut off all your enemies from before you. I'm going to pause right there. What's going on here? Tell me what you see in this. Both what David thinks and what God thinks.
David thinks he's doing the right thing by making a beautiful place for the ark to rest.
Yeah, he's like, look, man, I've captured this fortress city. I brought the ark there. Like, I built me a house here. I finally have a house. I've been living in caves and tents and moving around. I got a house. God should have a house. Like,
But he forgot something. He didn't ask God what God was.
Didn't ask God about it. And there's certain, boy, they said it seemed like Nathan's like, yeah, man, David, of course God's behind you. God says, yeah, they forgot to ask. So what is God's response? Or by the way, anyway, anything else? Anybody else? What is David thinking here? It is, by the way, I think it's what David's thinking. It's a charitable view of what David is thinking. He has struggled all of his life. He's had enemies all around him. He wants a fortress. He's struggled with the kingdom being split. You know, he probably still has people that might want to break away. That's certainly a theme throughout all Judges. Like, are we going to have one ruler? Are we going to be unified? Are we going to be 12 different tribes? David's like, I got to solidify power in this place. How am I going to do it? I'm going to bring the ark to my fortress. That's how I'm going to do it.
David's out of his element, though, because he has always been out with the sheep or out with the soldiers, and suddenly he has found himself kind of in a stable place with comfort, and he probably doesn't quite know how to react in this moment either.
So let's talk about what God views, because God is going to have a view of this. What do y'all see? How does God feel about this? That David has captured this fortress. He's brought the ark there. He wants to build God a house.
You can't put me in a house. I'm beyond a house. I've never had a house.
And I never told anybody to build a house. I did tell people to build a tent. In fact, like, you can go back. Like, I told people how to build a tent. I really told people how to build a tent, down to what kind of threads you're going to use, and what kind of designs you're going to put in the fabric of the tent, and what the holders, what the poles look like, how the tent rings work. Like, there's a lot of detail on how I'm going to build this tent. I never said nothing about a house. What else? What else do you think God is doing here? What's his view on this? You remember when Saul was tested with Goliath? 40 days. There's Goliath down there. Saul is tested. And David comes to him. And what does David say when he comes to talk to Saul? When he's ready to go out and fight Goliath? I've been keeping my sheep, Saul. I've been keeping my sheep. And I protected my sheep whenever a lion or a bear came to get my sheep, Saul. What are you doing? And what does God tell David here? David, I've been on the move. I had my people build a tent. And whenever they moved, I moved. And I plucked you out from being a shepherd. David, what are you doing in a house of cedar? David, what are you doing in a fortress? David, I plucked you out from following the sheep. Interesting choice of words there. We a lot of times think of shepherds leading sheep around. Sometimes shepherds lead sheep when they need them to go somewhere and they're like, follow me, sheep. Sometimes shepherds lead from behind. They let the sheep go and have a little freedom where they're going to go, and they follow them around. God specifically uses this word, following the sheep, is what you've been doing, David. You following them around now? I don't think you are. I think you're looking for safety in your fortress. But you know what? I'm the one who cut off your enemies. You think it's these walls? They're not up there anymore. You think it's these steep hills that are going to keep your enemies away from you? I'm the one who has given you safety. And I'm the one who cut off your enemies. And furthermore, you think you're building me a house? I'm building you a house. David, that's not how it works. You're in your fortress in your house of cedar and you think you're going to build me a house? I'm building you a house. Let's keep going. Because we got places to go. Because 24. We're going to skip all the way over. Man, things go south for David. By the way, we think of things starting to go south in the story. We said the story was the rise and fall of Saul and the rise and fall of David. And there's this parallel between Eli, who gets old and his sons are evil, and God cuts him off because of that. And then Samuel comes along and he gets old and his sons are evil, but for some reason God isn't mad at him. And then Saul usurps the role of the priest. And he doesn't trust God. And God gets angry with him and he cuts him off. And David usurps the role of the priest. And he doesn't trust God. He trusts in a fortress. And God is still with him. But things go sour. Very sour for David. And we think of this happening when he's on the roof and he sees a beautiful lady who is bathing. But it's actually started here when he built this fortress and he stopped following his sheep and he stayed in that house.
Because now you see why he's able, idle hands.
Idle hands. He's no longer shepherding.
Right.
What's he doing? Oh, I'm in the garden. I'm in the garden with the tree. So, oh boy, things go downhill from there. Boy, man, it's a fascinating story. I wondered if they're going to make a David Part 2. I don't know how they make a movie. I don't know how they make a children's movie out of 2 Samuel. Do not know how that happens. But let's get to, we're going to skip all the way to the end here, to chapter 24. And chapter 24 starts out this way. Again, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, "Go and take a census of Israel and Judah." And just from that census, we ought to have a couple questions. Like, well, when is this? Why is God angry with Israel? I mean, this comes along at the very end, it's the last chapter, I said, of 2 Samuel. But it has come, it's out of place. Let me just put it this way. Like, the story of 2 Samuel is pretty much chronological, going through David's life and his trials. And then we get to the end, and actually starting in 21, we have these stories that, like, they don't seem like they're chronological, okay? And in fact, after 21, we have a song, like we're wrapping this thing up. Like, it'd be a good way to wrap up the story. 2 Samuel will be like with this song from David. Not quite done yet. We're going to have, in 23, David's last words. I was saying a song. We had his last words. Like, this should be the end of the chapter. No. We have to detail what his mighty men have done. We got to learn about the 30. And what have the 30 have done? And who are the 3 who are chief of the 30? And what have the 3 done to become David's mighty men, the mighty 3? And then after all of that, we have this story stuck here. We don't know when it happens. We don't know why the Lord is angry with Israel. But for students of Torah, we can start to make some good guesses. The anger of the Lord burned against Israel. Have we heard that before? Absolutely, we've heard that before. I mean, that's pretty much Judges. We said that was the pattern. Israelites, again, did evil in the sight of the Lord. The anger of the Lord burns against them. So we can deduce they have done evil. And in fact, we always see this anger burning specifically when they practice idolatry. And we know what punishment comes from this. What does God do in Judges every single time when his anger burns against them? He gives them into the hands of their enemies. So we can start to answer some of these questions, and it will make the next verse make so much more sense. So the king said to Joab and the army commanders with him, "Go throughout the tribes of Israel from Dan to Beersheba, and enroll or count the fighting men, so that I may know how many there are." Why does David want to count the fighting men? Because God is giving them into the hands of their enemies. And David needs to go fight them. And if he's going to go fight them, what does David want to know? How many men do I have? Why is this a problem? Anybody know why this is a problem? It's forbidden. We don't get like many instructions for the king. They're not even supposed to have a king. And yet there are instructions for the king. I believe in Deuteronomy. Can't get a lot of horses. Shouldn't have many wives. Do not count the fighting men. Very few instructions. This is one of them. Why is it also a problem? Who is David trusting in to deliver him? His fighting men. I need to know how many fighting men. I need knowledge. By the way, that ought to remind you of something. I need knowledge to protect me. Maybe I need knowledge if God is supposed to protect us, but I need knowledge to protect us. Knowledge making him like God. But Joab replied to the king, "May the Lord your God multiply the troops 100 times over, and may the eyes of my lord the king see it. But why does my lord the king want to do such a thing?" Joab knows this is wrong. Man, Joab, Joab is a thorn in David's side his whole life. Oh, the story of David vying with Joab. It's like an incredible part of this story. Joab, not a good guy. Not a good guy at all. David can't get rid of him. And here, David's like, go count the men. Joab, no! What are you doing? You can't count the men. Why is he the one that knows that? The king's word, however, overruled Joab and the army commanders. So they left the presence of the king to enroll the fighting men of Israel. After crossing the Jordan, I'm going to skip a couple chapters. I'm going to tell you, they're going to go throughout the whole land. It's going to take them 9 months and 20 days to go throughout the land, counting the fighting men. Oh, how I wish I knew why it took 9 months and 20 days. If anybody figures that out, please come tell me. Once he gets done, we're down in verse 10 now. David, he gets the number back. We got 800,000 from Israel and 500,000 from Judah. When David finds this out, verse 10, David was conscience stricken after he had counted the fighting men, and he said to the Lord, I have sinned greatly in what I have done. Now, O Lord, I beg you, take away the guilt of your servant. I have done a very foolish thing. Before David got up the next morning, the word of the Lord had come to Gad, the prophet, David's seer. Go and tell David, this is what the Lord says. I am giving you 3 options. Choose one of them for me to carry out against you. So Gad went to David and said to him, shall there come upon you 3 years of famine in your land? Or 3 months of fleeing from your enemies while they pursue you? Or 3 days of plague in your land? Now then, think it over and decide how I should answer the one who sent me. David said to Gad, I am in deep distress. Let us fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is great. But do not let me fall into the hands of men. I want to pause here. 3 options David's got. And it's easy to gloss over these. Be like, oh, there's 3, 3, 3. God's done something kind of cool there. 3, 3, 3. Got years, months, days. That's interesting. But what is God doing in these plagues? Is there more to these plagues than just like 3 bad options and David gets to choose? I want y'all to look at those for a minute, and I will tell you one of them is not like the others. And in fact, David points out one of them is not like the other 2. But there's a couple different ways that one of them is not like the 2. So what do y'all think? What do you see in these 3 choices? While you're looking, I'll just point out, we've pointed out over and over again that the number of testing is 40. 40 days. 40 days is the number of testing. 40 Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets is the number of nuggets of testing. But 3 is also associated with testing. How many tests does Satan give Jesus? 3 choices. How many days does it take Abraham to journey to Mount Moriah when God tests him by telling him to sacrifice his son Isaac? 3 days. So 3 is also associated with testing, usually like in this preparation to the test, or maybe in the number of tests. The Israelites, after they come out of Egypt, they go into the wilderness, they're tested how many times? 3 times. All right, so 3 is associated with testing. What if this is a test? All right, tell me what you all found. It's like a little puzzle here. How are they not like? How is one of them not like the others?
2 of them affect the people, and one of them affects mostly David.
Yes. So tell me about that. Tell me.
Yeah, well, the famine and the plagues will affect everyone.
Yeah. So, and, well, I mean, like, is the family going to affect David?
Well, maybe not, where he's in 45. Yeah,
I mean, it's going to affect him in that it affects his land. It
Right.
affects. Do you think David is going to ever not have as much on his plate as he wants? think if there's one last meal in the whole land, who do you think's eating it? David. David's eating. That famine's not going to affect him personally. The plague is going to be on the land. Also notice specifically it says you're going to have famine in your land. You're going to have plague in your land. I think we're presuming here that David's not going to get stricken with the plague. Or 3 months of fleeing from your enemies while they pursue you. Okay, now David points out a different way that these are different. He's like, well, the first one would be falling into God's hands. And the third one, because God sends famine, men can't send famine. The third one would be falling into God's hands because God sends plague. God's mercies are great. Let us not fall into the hands of men. So you can kind of see, like, it's kind of some good logic there, David. I mean,
Selective.
a little selective. Does he turn out to be right? I'm going to read the rest of the story. Turns out David's right about this. It also just so happens that he chooses the option. Actually, which option does he choose? If you'll notice this. God said, choose one of these three. And what does David say? God said, 1, 2, or 3. David says, not 2. Not 2, God. Not that one.
But what's funny is that's what's built him. Fleeing from the enemy is what's made him who he is, and yet he doesn't want that.
I see so much in that, to apply that to ourselves. One, comfort. Johns, want comfort. Could you turn the thermostat down half a degree, maybe? I'd be more comfortable if it was like a half a degree. If you could just tweak it down half a degree, I'd be more comfortable. Johns. I want to be comfortable. Comfort is what destroys us, not what makes us. So he's like, not that one. 1 or 3, God, 1 or 3. And then God is going to choose one of them here. Which one does God choose? The plague. So the Lord sent a plague on Israel. Okay, by the way, we said it's testing. Y'all think David's passed this test? Or has he failed this test? If 2 of the options affect his people and 1 of the options affects him, and he said, not the one that affects me, David, I plucked you out of the field from being a shepherd, from following your sheep. And here you are in your fortress, in your house of cedar, thinking you're going to build me a house. Verse 15, so the Lord sent a plague on Israel from that morning until the end of the time designated, and 70,000 of the people from Dan to Beersheba died. When the angel stretched out his hand to destroy Jerusalem, the Lord was grieved. Interesting way to put it. You could also interpret the words as the Lord was consoled, or the Lord consoled himself because of the calamity, and said to the angel who was afflicting the people, enough, withdraw your hand. And the angel of the Lord was then at the threshing floor of Araunah, the Jebusite. Jebusite? What's a Jebusite doing here? We conquered the Jebusites, took their city. And when David saw the angel who was striking down the people, he said to the Lord, I am the one who has sinned and done wrong. These are but sheep. What have they done? Let your hand fall upon me and my family. What's David doing here? He picked the option that's not going to hurt him, that's going to hurt everyone else. But he sees the angel of the Lord bringing the plague to the city. And what does he say? No, not them. Me. Just get me, strike me. I think he's learned something here. On that day, Gad went to David and said to him, "Go up and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite." So David went up as the Lord had commanded through Gad. And when Araunah looked, specifically Araunah looks down at him. The word that's used there for looked is like an overlook. You're looking over the edge of a mountain, looking down. And saw the king and his men coming toward him. And he went out and bowed down before the king with his face to the ground. I'll summarize the rest of this. Araunah is going to be like, "What are you doing here?" David's like, "I came to offer up an offering to the Lord so this plague will stop." Araunah's like, "Here, you take the stuff, man. I got the threshing floor right here. It's yours. I've been plowing with these oxen. Oxen, that's what you need to kill. You need wood. I got a yoke. I got the sledges. It's yours." David says, "No, I'm going to buy it. I can't offer something that costs me nothing." And so he buys it for 50 shekels of silver, and then he offers the plague, and then our story ends with this sentence: "Then the Lord answered prayer in behalf of the land, and the plague on Israel was stopped." First off, I'll open it up. What do you see in this? What jumps out at you? Right, I'll go. There's something here about David's going up. He's in Jerusalem. He goes up. Araunah, by the way, means ark. It is the word ark. So the plague stops at Ark, Mr. Ark. And Mr. Ark is above David. It's pretty clear. Now remember our diagram, our topography of Jerusalem? If David's in Jerusalem, how is Araunah above him? It's on this ridge, right? Well, what's behind the ridge? A hill. It's behind this ridge. Oh, it's a pretty good idea of where Araunah is. Also, it's just giving us his vibes like David's going up a mountain to make a sacrifice. Who went up a mountain to plead on behalf of his people? Moses does that. Also, specifically, where is David going? Well, you might be interested to know that like the cities out on that peninsula, the temple is built on the hill above it. Later in Chronicles, the writer is going to explain to us that they built the temple on Mount Moriah, the place where Abraham goes to sacrifice Isaac, and the place where David came to make this sacrifice. It's the same place. Where these two things happen is where the temple is going to be built. Something we're going to learn in this story, David is going to say, "God, choose me. Let me take the blame for this. Kill me, not these sheep." Does God take him for this? No. Why not? We're going to use oxen instead. What do you think that is? I'll tell you why. We get instructions for the things that can be offered. Can you offer any animals that have blemishes on them? Can you do it? They've got to be perfect. Does David fit the bill? Sorry, David. You won't work. You got too many blemishes on you. I understand you lived a hard life. You got a lot of blemishes. Can't be you. In the place where the temple is built, God consoles himself. There's so many intercessors throughout 1st and 2nd Samuel. There is no intercessor here. God consoles himself, and he provides the sacrifice, perfect sacrifice, in the place where the temple is built. We're almost out of time. Man, I have a challenge for you. A challenge. Because I was reading to get ready for this, And as I was reading, there in black and white in front of me was David facing the first punishment. It's the first punishment God offers. 3 years of famine. I'm reading. There were 3 years of famine in the land. Wait a minute. David faces the first one? So what do you think I did? I started looking for the second one. It's in there. Blew my mind. David does not face the last punishment. He faces all three in the last 4 chapters of this book. And each one, 3, each one has a lesson to go along with it. A beautiful lesson for the 3 punishments that David faces. Here's the challenge. First person to come to me with the places where David faces the 3 punishments in the last 4 chapters of 2 Samuel, and your interpretation of what the lessons are, gets a prize. You, John,
Disqualified.
are disqualified. My family, sorry, disqualified. Everyone else,
So in favor.
first one.